beautiful elemental healing temple souls. My name is Kwali Kumara, Hari Bhajan Kaur, and today I'm super excited to be with the wonderful Alphedia. And Alphedia and I have known each other for best part of 10 years, is it, would you say? Or a little bit longer?
2009, yeah.
Yeah, 2009. We met in a really beautiful fairy festival, and Alphedia actually had a fear of snakes. And I helped her to get over her fear of snakes. And then in return, she asked me, would I like to hear what my snakes were saying? I was like, wow, this is amazing. And obviously, she revealed that she was a sacred spiritual channel and that she could speak with the elementals and the fairies and now it's expanded to deities and ascended masters and anyone else who wants to come through her, which is really interesting as a channel because most spiritual channels, as I understand, usually work with just one or two energies, whereas Alphedia has just got this incredible gift that she can literally speak to pretty much anything. And when we became great friends, and at one point, I think we were wandering around the Mind Body Spirit Festival together, and I said, "Oh, I love crystal skulls. I'd love to hear what the crystal skulls have got to say." I was like, "I wonder if can you speak to them?" She was like, "Probably." So, so there we did. So I think I can't remember if we did it there and then, but yeah, you basically opened up my world because I've always loved crystal skulls, but I've never been able to actually hear the consciousness. So for me, that was like such a gift for me to be able to hear what my actual skulls were saying, and of course that then mushroomed and escalated into Alphedia having a huge emporium of crystal skulls and dragons and crystals beyond. I mean, I don't know anyone that's got more crystal allies than Alphedia. So I feel really honored that I was a little part of that little
Part of my
process.
journey, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just so lovely to see how it has blossomed over the years. So to introduce Alphedia, that's kind of a little bit of background for us, but to introduce her, she's an amazing spiritual teacher. She's an extremely awesome author. I think you're on your third book now, are you? Is that right?
I have 4 books half written at the moment. So yeah, I'm walking this afternoon going, I have to sit down and finish this. I have to just do
But I literally, and she's a mother, so I'm always in like complete honor of how much you do actually get done. You're providing such an incredible service to all of your students, and I guess we wouldn't necessarily call them students, but the souls that are working with you in the way that you work, which is a very unique way.
it.
You're providing many different workshops for them on many different subjects and topics, and I think they're really lucky to have you in their life because you're like one woman, but you're covering so much
I know.
ground for people. So I really love that about you, and you're also really down to earth, and that's a really big thing for me is that I want to make spirituality accessible, and I want people to be able to come at it from whatever angle they're coming at it from. So so much of the spiritual world is either specific, like with the yogic technology, or all the various different avenues that you can come at it from. They do seem a little intimidating to a lot of people if they don't understand them. So I personally, that's what I'm doing with the Elemental Healing Temple, is I'm gathering up all of the amazing, incredible spiritual teachers and healers that I know that are really excellent and top of their game in what they do, but are also really accessible and super palatable and fun, and make spirituality really welcoming, because I think that's the problem. There's a lot of stigma around spirituality, and as things are breaking down even in the yogic world at the moment, we're sort of seeing the death of the guru, as it were, and other modalities are kind of rising up. For me, that's been a really interesting process and an interesting journey, because I've always been inspired by the spiritual lines that you're coming from, but we've never really been allowed to embrace those from the
Yeah.
yogic technology point of view. So I kind of felt like I had to choose whether it was going to be yoga or it was going to be the spiritual path, which essentially are the same path, you know. But that decision wasn't an easy one, and I feel like part of bringing the Elemental Healing Temple through, which, by the way, I wrote the manifesto in 2009 when we met. And it's interesting because Alphedia's business is called Elemental Beings, and the name of the temple was very clear that it had to be called the Elemental Healing Temple, because the play on words of the six platonic elements of that which we are created from, earth, fire, air, water, ether, and void, and the elementals, as in the fairies and the pixies, and the elementals from the land. And I really loved the balance of the title, the Elemental Healing Temple, really giving a nod to both those aspects of divinity and spiritual, you know, accessibility. So for me, as Alphedia already knows, I've always been into fairies. My nickname was Fairy, you know, so it's always fascinated me, the world that Alphedia lives in. And I'm really so excited for her to share some of her story with you today, because, you know, she's a super magical galactic being. You know, she's a priestess of Atlantis, and there's many different sort of dimensions to Alphedia. So it's really my task today is going to be tricky to bring in exactly what they need to hear from you today. But I think because this is just the first of many chats we can have,
Yeah.
I think it'd be really nice if you could kind of just sort of explain to people that maybe don't know what a channel is, what it is, and how it works, and how it works for you, because obviously people channel in different ways. But
Yeah.
I think channeling has got quite a stigma as well, and people are a little bit nervous or not quite sure about it, or it's a bit woo-woo. So if you could kind of just sort of like tell us how your channel works, and if that bleeds into your story about how you actually found your channel, that would be amazing, because I think that is just really interesting for people as well. So off you go, my beautiful priestess. Tell us all.
So, hi everybody, I'm Alphedia. I'm based in the Scottish borders, and I am originally from Perthshire, the middle of Scotland. As Kwali said, we met at the Three Wishes Fairy Festival in 2009. I'd been invited down by Karen Kate to be a speaker and to run some workshops and to give some talks. And I launched my first book, Messages from Nature's Guardians. And so how that all came about. I was a scientist. I studied geography, environmental science, and politics at university. And my passion was environmental policy. I wanted to get into Parliament and to create better environmental policies. Now, the year I went to university was 1998 and 1999. Now, the reason that is really significant in Scottish politics is that we had just been granted a Scottish Parliament. So the Scottish Parliament opened in 1999, and I was a student at Edinburgh University. The Scottish Parliament is in Edinburgh, and the Scottish Parliament had jurisdiction over environmental laws. So up until that point, the UK Parliament wasn't very interested in environmental policy. So when I went off to university to study environmental studies, actually there was only 8 of us started the course, and I was the only one to finish and graduate. So I'm the only person ever from Edinburgh University to get a geography and environmental studies degree. And as Kwali said, that was considered woo-woo. Okay, so I was considered woo-woo at that time of going off to university to study environmental science. Everybody was just like, what are you doing? You could go to any university in the world, you could study any course, your grades are good enough. Who does environmental science and environmental studies? And I was just like, I do, this is the way forward. So already I was on the path of being a bit different. Of course, nowadays, having an environmental science degree is one of the top degrees to have, because we so need environmental scientists on the planet. But I was always passionate about Mother Earth. I was always passionate about change, and I was always passionate about taking action. And that led me into being an activist, I suppose, in a way, an avatar for change. But what I didn't have was any spirituality. I always loved fairies, the flower fairies. I grew up, my grandparents had a small holding farm, and my granny would be like, oh, off you go and play in the barn, go and play with the sprites. So she always was into the sort of what we would call the mythical creatures. But I mean, she died when I was 9, so I don't really remember. My dad was one of 6 and he was the second youngest. So she was 86 when she died and I was only 9. So I only have sort of vague memories, but they're strong. And all the memories are of the trees, the burn, the freedom that I had as a child to just play in nature and to play with fairies and to create little potions with rose petals and perfumes and, you know, just all the things that connect you, leaves and things. And so I then went to university and I disconnected from all that side of things. You know, I'd sort of grown up, got really into the science of it all. But the universe had a different plan. I took seriously ill at 23. I had a flu vaccine. I was frontline staff. I was working for the Shadow First Minister. So that's the equivalent of your opposition down at Westminster. And so, yeah, we were considered frontline staff, and I stupidly took the vaccine, and well, it just catalyzed me into a very dark night of the soul, but a rebirth as well. And so I was left bedridden for a year and a half, completely unable to move except from the neck up. So I could still eat, but that's all I could sort of move. And it wasn't like paralysis though. It was like, you know, I could feel my body and I could feel my brain trying to tell bits of my body to move. It just couldn't do it. I had a swollen brain. They realized, the doctors didn't know what was wrong. And then they realized that I had encephalitis of the brain, I had encephalitis of the spine. And my parents found a private neurophysiologist who I now know it was all orchestrated by the angels. And she came out and she started treating me, but she was actually highly psychic. And I had an experience when she'd maybe been treating me for about a month, and movement was starting to return slowly to me at that point. But I had this experience of waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a man walking towards me in what I would say, well, I knew it was a ghost, but in sort of, it wasn't full color. It was like shades of gray and white. And I could see the detail of the clothing. And I remember shouting out, like, so it's 4 o'clock in the morning. My parents had a bungalow, they were next door. And I shouted out, I'm not ready for this yet. And the man turned round and I saw the back of his waistcoat. He was wearing what we would call a berry waistcoat. So I'm from Perthshire. I've not written about this story in any of my books, so you're getting an exclusive here. I used to tell it in my talks, but you're getting an Alphedia exclusive. And I knew it was my grandfather. He had died for 3 months after my granny when I was 9, but I never really knew him because he was away with dementia, so he was in hospital. So my recollections of him were just from watching videos of him. I didn't have any personal recollections of any interactions with my grandfather, but I knew that's who it was. And then I thought, how did I tell my parents this? I grew up in a really go to church every Sunday, Protestant Church of Scotland upbringing. So I was like, how do I tell my parents that I'm pretty sure my grandfather, they're just excited that somebody's getting me better and I'm not going to die anymore. And anyway, so I sat with it and I knew it was my grandfather because 2 days later, my Auntie Joyce died, who was my dad's older sister. So I knew he was coming to tell me that she was going to die. She had cancer and she'd fallen out with the whole family. And I just said to my dad, oh, maybe you should phone Auntie Joyce. She did send me a card saying, get well soon. You're thought about more than you realise. Anyway, so my dad phoned, sent flower. Well, he'd already sent flowers, but phoned, but he never got to speak to her. She was obviously at the final stages of cancer, so she wouldn't have been communicative. But anyway, that was my first spiritual experience of anything that was out with my consciousness of, you know, I hadn't thought about ghosts or anything. But I then mentioned it to my neurophysiologist when my mum was in the room, and I said, I had this visit, blah, blah, blah. And she said to me, well, I'm treating your brain with ions. And one of the things it can do is open up your sixth sense. But of course, scientifically, this is not recognized. And I was like, okay, well, everybody's heard of a sixth sense and you just think clairvoyance. But I thought, right, okay. And then she said to me, what do you think happens when you die? And I said, well, you just go to sleep and that's you. And she went, no, that's not you. You don't, your spirit lives on. And so that's the first time it introduced this concept to me of a spirit, you know. And I was like, okay. Now, we lived beside a cemetery, not beside it, but we lived on the outskirts of town, and they'd made a cemetery down the hill, which meant the hearse had to go past my bedroom to get to the cemetery. And it wasn't very busy. I lived in a small town, but, you know, my mum would always pull the blinds. And of course, I didn't like seeing the hearse. So she would always check the bay bird, see if there's a funeral coming, and be like, there's a funeral coming, when I couldn't move, and she would pull over. But after I had that visit from my grandfather, I started to see things in the graveyard. I started just psychically seeing the graveyard, and I got really freaked out by it at that time because I wasn't well, I couldn't move, and I was like, why am I seeing all this stuff? So essentially my clairvoyance was opening up during this treatment. But the next thing that happened was people started sending me angel cards, and as in just like gift cards, not oracle cards, or statues and things. So the angels started coming into my life, and then I had to start to read again. So I couldn't read. I hadn't been able to read for 3 years because I knew what words were. You know, it wasn't like I'd forgotten English, but my brain couldn't track along the line. So I had to get a piece of white paper and have a piece of white paper so it would block off the words below the line I was reading, and the other side of the page had to be covered with white paper too. So there was no distraction for my eyes in what I was saying. So she taught me how to read again from a neurological point of view, because I was unable to tolerate any artificial light for 3 years as well. So talk about dark night of the soul, like Scotland is dark from 4 o'clock. It's not light until 9 o'clock in the morning in winter. So, you know, my dark night of the soul was intense, you know.
Super dark.
It was really dark. But you know, the one thing is they sent psychiatrists out and they're like, have you thought about killing yourself? And I was like, I can't move. How am I going to do that? No, I haven't thought about killing myself. I never got depressed because I always had this strong sense that somebody was going to come and get me better. I just knew it. It just had this strong faith, and I wasn't praying. Done with Christian religion. I was like, no, this is not for me. And my mum would be like, please pray. We've got so many prayer circles out there for you. And of course, now I know the power of prayer. And prayer is nothing to do with religion. It is just asking, it's non-denominational, it's asking the divine to give to you. And I pray every day now. But in one manifesting as a prayer. But it was when, and it took months, it took a good 6 months until I was ready to walk outside again. And you just think to yourself, oh, you get up and you walk, and you watch TV programs, somebody's been in a wheelchair for 6 months and they just get up and walk. It doesn't happen like that. Your muscles have atrophied, you have to learn to walk again. And I had obviously neurological problems too, so it wasn't just like an injury had stopped it. When I started to walk outside, the first thing, my mum and dad have a really nice garden with roses and plants. And just walking outside is really hard because you've got the wind, you've got uneven ground, and you've got lots of noise going on. So it's quite overwhelming. But then I had another thing that was overwhelming me, which was that I could see energy. I could see beings on flowers and plants and colours around them, like the aura of them. And I was like, that wasn't there before. I never saw any of this before. I didn't tell anybody about that for ages, and I kept going with my walking. And then I got a visit. I got a visit from Archangel Metatron. Now, Archangel Metatron had already visited me. He visited me when I fell into a coma. This was before we found out about the neurophysiologist. I went into a coma, and my parents were trying to wake me up. I did write about this in my book. And my mum was at my left-hand side, my dad was at my right-hand side. I vividly remember it. And they were shaking me, trying to get me to wake up. And I came out of my body and I was looking down on myself. And I clearly heard this male booming voice say to me, You now have the choice whether to live or to die. And I just was instant. I didn't have to think about it. I was like, I'm too young to die. And I was thrown straight back into the body, and my eyes opened up, and my parents were like, oh, right, great, you're back round, type thing. But obviously that was a near-death experience. And that was the moment that I made the choice to live. So I was apparently granted more access and gifts because I sort of essentially said, I'm following this mission. Now, there's another part to that story, but I am mindful that maybe some of your followers at this point are a bit blown away with what already I'm saying, to maybe bring in the other aspect that I actually had a walk-in soul swap at that time. And that's maybe something we can talk about more if that's something people are into. So I was a new person, had come in, and this was all part of the contract. I knew at 16 I was going to end up in bed, not able to move with ME. I remember telling friends that. I remember at 14 standing on a hockey pitch saying to my friends, who were all like talking as girls do about the boys, they're playing their rugby and you're on the hockey pitch. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. I'm going to marry a silver fox and my parents are not going to be happy about it. And they were like, what are you talking about? And then I did. My husband is 26 years older than me, and he was pure silver, or he's been pure silver since he was 18. And yeah, my mother was not happy about it. I was only 26 and he was 52, and I just learned to walk again, you can imagine. But anyway, Metatron said to me that night, I had read a book, The Light Worker's Way by Doreen Virtue. It was one of the first books I read. My ME doctor, so this is a medical doctor, recommended it to me when I told him I was starting to have these sort of spiritual experiences. So I found good private doctors who were all closet spiritual psychics.
Yeah, he said, they must have been sent to you because they seem like really out there doctors.
Cool. And so he said, read this book. So I read it, and it was a chapter on angels. And I just thought, okay, I can do that. I just thought, oh, if you're into this, you can talk to angels, you can talk to fairies. But Metatron said, you're not going to go back into politics. You're going to write a book. You're going to write a book about the environmental messages of the elementals. And I was like, what? He says, you're going to set a business up and you're going to write this book. So I followed his guidance. My family thought I was mad. My old boss, who is now the Deputy First Minister of Scotland, was like, you have a job with me anytime, come back, work for me. It's not a problem. We'll always give you a job. And I did go back. I did go back a bit, but I still set the company up, and I wrote the book Messages from Nature's Guardians, which was launched at the Fairy Festival, which is when I met Kwali. And I was still pretty ill then. I still couldn't walk very far. I mean, I was walking, but I had to rest a lot. And, Kwali's like, come to my yoga class. And I'm like, no way is my body doing yoga. But the next year I did come to the classes, and that's when we got over my snake fear. But, so yeah, I set the business up and I just followed their guidance, and I've just followed their guidance ever since. And so I haven't followed anybody else's path. I've never done a learn how to speak to angels. I've never done a train in this course. I did my beginner's Reiki just to have it. I didn't do a course on it. My friend's a Reiki master. She says, I'll just quickly attune you. Half an hour, done and dusted. I have done my training in my green ray Reiki. I did do proper training in the green ray Reiki, but that was years later. But what I'm trying to say is I have just followed my own unique path, as you say. I have just followed the deities and the journey that they've wanted to, take me on. And yeah, there's very few people in the world do what I do, and I've never advertised, and now I have got customers in over 60 countries around the world. Hundreds of people do the courses, and we work hard. Ringus is part of the business too, and we work so hard. But what I'm trying to say is, when you're on the path, I lost loads of friends. Not even lost, they probably still think we're friends, but I don't see them much now. Some friends I did lose because they just couldn't cope with my way outness, but then I've gained so many more, and people come and go in your life. And as a channel, I think one of the things is you can always access information, and you can always, I get told when people are going to leave my life, And then it can be hard. It's like these 4 people are going to be taken out of your life, and it might be people you really like and they're good friends or whatever. And then you just have to surrender to it and go, okay. And it happens, and it just one by one happens, and then you have to master your ego reaction to it happening, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, oh yeah, it sounds great, but there are hard parts to it as well. And when Kwali says I'm a channel, what she means is that I allow deities to actually physically speak through me. So I'm not a trance channel. I can do trance, and I do trance sometimes on the retreats, but it's better for me to still be awake and allow them to come through. So I just go out of it and I actually observe what is happening. Sometimes they take me really deep and I don't remember anything. But most of the times, which is where I am really unique as a facilitator, is that I can do channel meditation. I'm a sound healer as well, be playing the singing bowls, and I can still be getting information for myself, because the deity is really in the body and I doing the channeling work. And so I'm actually doing the workshop as separate. A lot of channels say, oh, doing workshops is boring because I'm just out of it, and I come around and everybody's like had a great 3 hours and I have no clue what's happened.
What happened?
Yeah. Whereas for me, I can make my courses really interactive. I can just get information like that. But it does, you know, it does take years. It took me years to get to this level. And so many people have asked me to do workshops on how to channel. And I have been, you know, I have been always planning, and it just hasn't come together yet because they've wanted so much other stuff. But I started with using oracle cards, and I'm a clairaudient. So it started with clairaudience. I could hear them. But my strongest sixth sense is my clairsentience. I feel energies, which is why I don't do one-to-one sessions very often. I do big group sessions because I'm able to check in and feel on people. And it's the way I look at it, I can help one person for an hour, or I can help 100 people in that hour. You know, I'm here to do the big teamwork, and it takes a lot of effort to develop your energy field to that place. So it started off with channeled writing, so automatic writing. Then I really developed my clairaudience. Then my clairvoyance, I still say my clairvoyance is my weakest sixth sense. I know a lot of people are more clairvoyant than me, but I see things just not in full color all the time. But I could always see what is going on. And so the last thing, so I used to hear and then repeat. And when I started doing the courses 13 years ago, I would hear what was being said and then repeat it. But then I did lots of work on my claircognizance, which is your crown chakra, when you just let information flow through you, you know, and come through you. And the more you can trust yourself in doing that, and the more you master your ego, because I've seen a lot of people starting out and they start channeling and they bring through all this information, and then I'll say, is that true? And they're like, of course it's true, it's what I channeled. They're like, yeah, but is it truth what you channeled? Yeah, of course it is. And I'm like, is it absolute truth? And when you ask that question 3 times, they have to answer. So even if they consciously think they're telling you the truth, their ego has to step out of the way. And it's the same when you check any data. Are you really Archangel Michael? If you ask 3 times, if you have an imposter, by the 3rd time they have to tell the truth and go. And they're like, no, that came from an ego aspect of myself. You know, so I've had so much training from the guides to be a channel. I haven't drunk any alcohol for 17 years because they said you can't drink alcohol and be a channel. The reason you can't do that is because it blows your chakras, it opens up the potential for other energies to come in. I never did drugs anyway, but even taking, you know, painkillers, paracetamol, anything like that, morphine, you connect to the grids, the opiate grids. Alcohol, you connect to the alcohol grid. You know, I'm not saying that a lot of channels smoke. They choose to do it. A lot of mediums do it for whatever reason, but actually it connects you into grids, which affects the vibration. So, you know, the easiest thing to speak to is spirit because it's the closest to us. Okay, so mediumship has its level. I'm not dissing it in any way, but it's the easiest level to come in to channel at. And then probably next is the angels, because they're around us all the time. The elementals are, I mean, they're just as easy, but whether they will allow you to channel them, because they literally check out your environmental credentials. They literally, if you are not living the walk, you know, if you are not being in integrity, the elementals won't be interested. If you are like saying, oh yeah, speak to fairies, da, 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 yet you are putting chemicals into your body, onto your fates, like they literally don't like that. So it's all about authenticity for the elementals, you know. Once you get onto star beings and things like that, it is a higher vibration thing. So it's about the journey. So what I say to people is, you know, it's a journey. It's like anything else. You don't expect a surgeon to first day of medical school be able to do a heart bypass. You know, he or she trains for over 10 years to be able to do an operation like that. It's no different. And it's fascinating because, as you say, Kwali, it's like the yoga world, you know, the gurus that brought through all the teachings and brought through the mudras and the amazing accuracy of the physical body's connection with the neurological pathways, and all of that is very, very valuable. But it was brought through at a particular time as well of consciousness, you know. And that is why I sort of say to people, you know, someone's like, oh, I'm a Buddhist. And I'm like, well, that's your identity. You're identifying with that. Buddhism is still a mainstream religion. Yoga, in a way, is not a religion. It's a way of life. It's a philosophy, whatever. But it still has that indoctrination in it. And what you're sort of talking about was you could see that indoctrination probably ahead of the time. 10 years ago, you saw that indoctrination. But you required the training and the understanding to be able to say, well, actually, yeah, I'm going to take these teachings, but I'm here to evolve these teachings to the next level. And I was told very early on in my path, and I'm like, what, me? I have no background. I didn't grow up in a spiritual family. And they're like, you're here to be a teacher to the teachers. And I was like, what does that mean? And it took me 5 years to work it out. Lots of people come to my courses now who are healers and who teach their own courses at a particular level. So I don't do the beginner work anymore, really. They're all there. You can still do a beginner's course with me. I record all my courses. Want to meet your guardian angel? That 3-hour course is on the website to download. You want to meet your guardian elementals at a beginner level? That course is there. But I don't do that work now because I was doing that work 12 years ago, you know, and other people have come on who can do that. But certain souls are sent to be the pioneers, to push the boundaries, to actually say, okay, we're post 2012 now, and there's work to do. And that's not to disregard all that knowledge that we have got from the past, because that's incredibly valuable. But it is so important we start channeling through the new information and, you know, bringing it through and start to communicate with the snakes, start to communicate with trees, start to communicate with these beings who in the past people didn't think were capable of communication, and to remember our telepathy, to remember to open our hearts up. And it's so important. So, you know, my journey, everybody's journey is unique. My journey is my journey. I'm not saying my journey is the right journey or the proper journey, but it was the journey that I went on. And, you know, that's how I do what I do for a living now. So yeah, and it's tiring. People, you know, they always say that a master makes it look easy, you know, and it's the same with yoga. When I watch you doing your yoga, I'm always like, oh, look at her body. Isn't that amazing? You're like, get your legs up to 90 degrees. And I'm like, don't bend your knees. I'm like, I can't even get my hamstrings to get in that position. But, you know, it's, you know, my body's got a lot of healing still to do. But it is just that way of when somebody is a master of their art, it looks easy and effortless. But it's easy and effortless because they've done the work to make it easy and effortless. Their soul's done the work. They've done their training in this life as well. And I think that's sometimes what people forget, that the journey actually is really important, and the adventure is really important. And ultimately, we're all coming back to the same place of the oneness within, with our own unique path to getting there.
Wow, it's so beautiful. Oh, we got more than we bargained for there, guys, didn't we? Wow. it's so incredible. I could literally listen to you talking all day. I'm so blessed you're my friend as well because we can. But it's like you said, we're always very busy. You know, there's a lot to do on the planet right now, isn't there? And that's the next thing that I was going to ask you with everything that we've experienced. And you know, for me, the lockdown has been an incredible experience. As you know, you've been on that journey with me of being able to rebirth into this new online cyber world, which, to be fair, you've been telling me for years to get involved in, but I couldn't actually see how I could make it happen. And I thought I had to physically go to my students to deliver. And Alphedia was like, no, 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 you can be in the middle of nowhere. We live in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, business has never been better. But it literally took for lockdown to kind of show me the new way. So
Do you know what lockdown did, you see? Lockdown, because a lot of my job is getting people out of their indoctrination and getting people out of their conditioned beliefs. And so you were part of that conditioned belief. You'd bought into that because that was all the teachings that were indoctrinated into you. It's the same as the doctor who's only taught allopathic medicine. They don't have any respect for, like, my husband, who's a homeopath. Don't get me wrong, there are homeopathic doctors who do work in the NHS as well. But, you know, because they've only been trained in that way and their indoctrination is, this is the way. But when you actually step back from it, that's what I had no training. Nobody could tell me what was right or wrong because I didn't have that indoctrination. And so what lockdown did was gave you permission. It was a case of, how am I going to feed my kids? How am I going to feed my snakes? I have to do something. How am I going to help my students who are looking at 4 months, because yoga centres are still, well, they're not open yet in Scotland. I don't think they're open yet in England yet either.
Slowly, but still.
Yeah. So, you know, how am I going to keep my students going? You know, and so you have to then say, okay, well, in an ideal world, when people have lots of time and when you all live in an ashram up in the high Himalayas and you can trot along to your guru, then yes, of course it's lovely to be in physical connection. But the world is evolving, the world is changing. We have this gift of technology now. Imagine if COVID came in 10 years ago. Nobody would have had any connection. Everybody would be in complete mental health breakdown. I mean, it's been great every Sunday. I'm like, I've got my yoga on Sunday. This is me who could barely move at the start. It was like, who cares? Even if I just sit and watch Kwali's body moving amazingly and say to my body, just pretend you're doing that. You know, it was a focus, you know, and it is brave. It's brave to step out, and it is brave to say to people, do you know what? This is what I am offering now. And I realized that, you know, for the first 5 years of my company, I made a massive loss. When I gave birth to my son, the company owed me £8,000. And I just said to the universe, how? This has got to make me money. I've got a baby now. How am I going to do this? Because if I need to go back into politics to just earn a living, and I'll keep going with my spiritual work, but I can't keep following the guidance you're giving me unless I'm going to get a wage out of this. It's been 5 years since, well, longer, because I was ill for 4 before that. So, you know, and Metatron came in and said, stop using your birth name, Fiona Murray, which I wrote my book in, and start using your spiritual name, Alphedia. And I said, okay, now I need to rebrand myself, rebirth myself yet again. So there'll be some people that, no, they might know because they might have read my book that I was Fiona. I've got other people who still call me Fiona because that's what I was, you know. It happened yesterday. People from the Fairy Festival, actually, and they said, hi, Fiona. And I was like, who's that? Okay, that was me. Sorry. But you're the same, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it gets to the point where it's kind of like, who is that person now? I'm just like, I don't recognize that person.
Do your family still call you Kelly?
Yeah, my mom is the only person that still calls me by my birth name, and very sort of, you know, family members, but I don't see them a whole lot, so it doesn't happen a lot. But my brother, he used to stumble with it, and I was like, look, brother, we're in public place. I can't have you keep using that other code. I'm on this code now. It's a key, isn't it? Your name is.
I know, it's interesting because my sister still does it, and she's a yoga teacher.
I got my brother to call me sis. I said, if you can't cope with Kwali, then sis. Yeah. And that's it now. It starts.
I know, and she still does it, and I'm just like, how can't you just get over it? It's not who I am now. But anyway, it's you know, but again, you see, that's their boundary, their condition. You don't change your name. You know, the
Absolutely.
conditioned reality, you were given that name, so that is your name. But
Mm.
actually, that's just conditioning. You can be who you want to be,
Yeah.
you know. The number of people I'd say, it's £15, deed poll, you do it online, get somebody to sign it. Bob's your uncle, you've got a new identity. It's
Exactly.
all legal. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
you know,
And
it's,
it's so liberating, isn't it? When you, because I changed mine officially to Kwali
yeah.
Kumara, and it was like I waited for a bit too long, really, because I wanted to keep my mum happy, and I
I
knew
did
she
it,
wasn't
well, I did
happy.
it too, because I was waiting, I realized, for my middle name, which is Arara.
Mm. Mm.
So that came to me in 2013 when I was channeling a Lemurian dolphin workshop, and they kept calling me Priestess Arara, and I was like, who is Priestess Arara? And they're like, that was your Lemurian priestess name. And I was like, oh, my job in Lemuria was to communicate with dolphins. Funny, I do it in this life too.
Brilliant.
But, you know, I've worked as a channel in many, a healer in a channel in many lifetimes. So other people have said to me, like, how do I get to do what you do? And then I say to them, well, or the other classic you get, which is something that the yogic tradition maybe has indoctrination in as well, is about the charging for your energy and your services. And I just say, well, you know, it's not just this lifetime. I have got hundreds of years of training for this, and I literally charge what I'm told to charge by the deities. Because again, you don't expect your plumber to come round and fix your toilet for nothing. You think that's acceptable to pay them, and you think it's acceptable to pay your accountant and to pay your like dentist if you're private. So why is it not acceptable to pay somebody who's given you 4 hours, 2, 3, 4 hours of your time to teach you? Because you're learning, you're being taught. And then all money is an energy exchange. Why wouldn't you want to exchange energy with them? And why aren't you asking the universe to provide you for all you require, so that, you know, you can just open up to receive? And of course, I've done lots of courses on if you've not got any money and you can't receive money, father's issues. If you're not able to keep hold of money, if you're somebody who literally, as soon as you get it, you have to spend it because it's like, oh, I'll get contaminated if I have it. Mother issues because you're not able to nurture yourself, because money is just an energy. And when you realize all money is an energy, and when you let go of all the attachments you have to the money philosophy, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, money's the root of all evil, it's wrong to talk about money, they're just all conditioned beliefs that people have put in to disempower you religiously, politically, socially, you know. So this is the time now. We're post 2012. This is the time to step out of all these boxes, and essentially that's what I do. I help people step out of their boxes, and I use lots of tools to do that. So this is my Peruvian skull, which Kwali and I are going to do a workshop with. So
Oh, that's the one.
this
Hooray.
this is the skull from Peru. It was
Lovely.
mined in Peru, carved in Peru, and it's not the skull that I had, which has gone to Peru twice. I've got a tiny little one, which has been twice. So it's been, but anyway, this is, so yeah, the crystal skulls are vehicles, they're tools, they are computers of knowledge. And that's why, I mean, I studied crystals at university. Of course, I actually sit exams on studying crystals through microscopes for my geology side of my course. So, you know, even my degree was preparing me for my future life as a crystallologist. But yeah, so my job is really giving people the tools, and one of the tools is I can channel. And one of the things that I do is that I work a lot with the elements as well, and the animal kingdom. I do animal communication. I channel people's crystal skulls for them, as Kwali says. I do that, and I do personal soul channelings as well when I'm not overwhelmed with them. So I open them up and then have to close them off again within a month, because that's me full for the next 3 months. But you know,
Do you ever get burnout? Like, do you ever get to the point where you can't channel anymore because you've channeled so much? Like it makes me just think of Ghost in the movie in the 80s, where they're all there all the time and she wishes she could shut them off or shut them down. Like, do you ever get that point where you feel burnt out from
yeah.
it? Or
So I've had periods of that. I've learned now how to not have that, but I have had that. I've had complete adrenal fatigue from doing it. What happens when you channel the way I do is that so when you're just, so I don't just channel words. I've met other channels, and they're all lovely people and beautiful people. They channel the words, okay? But the way I get asked to channel, it's the energy as well as the words. So it is like a whole envelopment of that energy, which is why people say, oh my gosh, I'm blasted by your meditations and your courses, because I fully embody the energy and I freely send it out. And that's what's really tiring, because it's all about your central nervous system. And of course, my central nervous system, that is what completely collapsed. I now know it completely collapsed, so it could be rebuilt in the unique frequency way, so I can do what it is I'm here to do. But yes, I do. And I used to let my mind, because I used to be a professional athlete, believe it or not, before I took ill. I used to be a sprinter.
So many lifetimes you've lived.
I know. I used to be a sprinter, and I used to be a regional hockey player as well. But I was fast, you see, that's why I was good at hockey, field hockey. But yes, I used to be a sprinter, and we used to I was in the national squad. So this was sort of teenage years. And we used to get a lot of sports psychology about pushing through mental limitations, pushing through. It helped me so much. The reason I was able to recover from the illness I did, the neurophysiologist said, was that muscle has memory, as we all know. And my muscles were so finely honed and developed that, because they're at top athletes level, that they, once they started to fire off and work again, recovery, you know, in terms of the muscle building up strength and things again, happened quite quickly. The problem is that I've got a cross-patterning issue within the brain, which is how the Kundalini Yoga is helping. So I still have that slight neurological dyslexia. And I also have what the physiotherapists call neurological pathways in the muscles or within the brain, where it goes down the dead end. Because when you get a brain injury, it's the neurons have to reform new pathways. And so sometimes, it's getting so much better though, sometimes I'll go down a dead end path, and that's why my muscles just couldn't move, and it took such a long time for the body to start to recover and remember, because there's so many dead ends within my, you know, brain. But so my whole central nervous system got rewired. And so yes, I have to start switching stuff off. And it's difficult for customers to understand. Maybe I don't make it clear enough. Maybe I'll do a YouTube video on it. But, you know, I might be like, oh, you're next in the queue, I'll get you done tomorrow, because I've got that mental focus of I'll power through anything. And so I used to just power through it because I thought I should. And I was like, oh, I've said I'll get this done within 5 days, and I would push myself through it. But it was like, you know, if you push yourself through the marathon and you can't do much the next day because you've got to recover. And so I wasn't allowing enough recovery time. And now I've just had to start saying, do you know what? We aim to have it done by this time, because I can wake up and I could have had a really busy night in the ethers, or a bad night. I mean, last night I got no sleep. I was woken up at 3 a.m. and all these massive realizations about the next stage of my healing journey. It was going back. Poor Ringus had to wake up as well. I did an hour's meditation on self-love, hoping one of the ones I channeled with Chamuel and Charity. And I thought, oh, that'll get me to sleep, but it didn't. And then eventually we got it back to this trauma. Where had this trauma come in? And it had been Atlantis, and it had been when the fall of Atlantis was coming. And it was sort of this whole self-hatred, lack of self-love stuff that was coming up for me, because that's when you can get burnout, when you can't say enough. And I just need to let my body recover. And I've had to accept, you know, people are actually happy to wait, because there's not many people in the world can do what I can do. And if they want their personal message, then, you know, if it's going to be 2 more days or never, then they'd rather take the 2 more days than me being like, well, that's it, guys, I can't channel anymore. It's just too physically demanding. But that again is why I'm really enjoying, as you know, I've been wanting you for years to do Kundalini Yoga, because nobody's been doing Kundalini Yoga up in Scotland. Then some people started to do it. But the problem was I'd been on Kwali Kumara Kundalini Yoga courses, and I was like, this isn't Kundalini yoga. Like, they were obviously doing Kundalini yoga, but they weren't doing Kundalini yoga like you were doing, with bringing all the galactic element in and all the elementals and all the spiritual side of things, you know. And so I trotted off to my hatha yoga, and, you know, which is very painful for my body. It's still very beneficial, and I just, those downward dogs are just such a killer for me. So I started to think, oh, I'm so rubbish. But I'm sure when my spa opens up again and I can go back to the hatha yoga, I'll be stronger, because I've been doing all my
Definitely, absolutely, so much stronger. Yeah, you've been
you
great.
know.
You've really, really flown with it. I'm so impressed. You've got personal practice now and everything.
No, I know, but you know, I've always known what I was looking for. But
Mm,
again, I've always been guided with the teachers, and you have to have somebody that you A, trust, and
mm.
but B, who is on your frequency and on your level with it. And I also know, I used to think you were crazy. I'd be like, how can Kwali do it? When, like, she'd be like, oh yeah, I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I trot off to the temple and I'm doing my teacher training. And I would see 4 o'clock in the morning and go, oh good, I've got another 4 hours sleep to go. There was no way. And I used to always think about you trotting off, and I was like, how does this woman do this? I could never ever do that. But it's not for me to be doing. I'm here to teach other things. You're here to teach that. So you obviously can get out of your bed and do stuff. I do it once a year for the summer solstice. Get outside at that time.
But I don't have voices keeping me awake all night, you see. That's the thing. That's
Yeah.
the difference, isn't it? You know, it's like but I mean, that's just the beautiful thing, isn't it, about this day and age now, is that we're all beautiful petals of the same flower, and everybody's uniqueness it is bringing something so special to the world. And that's really why I'm so happy to be finally launching this project that's been a seed since 2009. You know, it's finally coming together because it's the time where people need it the most. I think this is the moment where everything has literally stopped and people have gone, oh, okay, what now? And there's nothing else but to turn to the spiritual side of life, you know, to look to the other ways and the old ways, you know, because everything that we teach is ancient wisdom, isn't it? You know, whether it's the yoga or the spirituality, it's all ancient wisdom that's coming forwards to navigate and help us steer our way through the darkness into the light. I noticed that most of the light workers, if we call them that, all the light workers absolutely loving lockdown. I've never heard a grumble from any light worker about lockdown. It's only people that sadly haven't completely woken yet that are struggling, because, you know.
I think the difference is those who need distraction in their life. So going to the pub is a distraction, really. You know, going to the cinema, it's just like our modern day entertainment is distraction. It is not about, you know, in the past you would go and listen to a guru teaching or whatever, or you would go dancing to meet somebody, or you would have dinners to, again, be socially interacting. And okay, people still eat out and things, but what I mean is that the true essence is to do all these things when you're being comfortable within. And if you're comfortable within with who you are, then you're not doing them to have a distraction. You're doing them for the choice of spending your time that way, not running away from something that is, you know, within you. And of course, we're in this period, Mother Earth's templates. She's activated at the last winter solstice, the next level of her Earth's templates. And, you know, that's a massive heart opening. So many people are terrified of being in their hearts because then they have to feel. If you're in your heart, you have to feel. But more and more are excited about that. And so they're looking to come to the yoga, or particularly the Kundalini, or they're looking for meditations, you know. They're looking for somebody that's telling the truth as well, because they now know that the governments aren't telling the truth. They now know that the mainstream religions aren't telling the truth. They now know that, you know, what they get fed through the newspapers and the internet and social media isn't always the truth. And so people are starting to remember there is a truth, and there's this truth within them. And this is why I always really encourage people who are spiritual. And, you know, when I started my work with the elementals, that was way out there. that was just totally, everybody was into angels and Reiki. And it kind of wasn't even the yoga time at that stage, really, was it? Certainly not
No,
Kundalini yoga
definitely not.
back 12 years ago.
Yeah,
And
definitely
so
not.
I was
We
way,
were the queens of woo woo.
I was way out then with saying, let's work with the elementals. So there was very few of us doing that. We all gathered at Karen Kay's Fairy Festival because that was us. That was the folk at that time. There was like, I don't know, 20 teachers. That was us, for the whole of the world really at that point. And now there's so many authors and so many courses and things. But I still think it is really important. I don't like to use the word think. I know it is really important for people to have the opportunity to connect with the elements, to connect with the elementals, and to, I was doing these earth healing SOSs through lockdown to gather together earth healers. It's all up on my YouTube channel. So if you think, oh, I'd like to be an earth healer, we were trying to deactivate the virus. We were working on doing a lot of the energy work, working with the skulls on it. I've been told that there's more work to do now, because there's talk of the second wave and things coming in. There's more manipulation going on. So I will be doing more earth healing SOSs. So people can always join my newsletter. elementalbeings.co.uk is the website. You can go onto the newsletter, sign up. You'll get notified about courses, but you'll also get the SOSs if you want to do the healing work. And you don't need any experience at earth healing. People ask, I don't know what to do. You just need to know how to meditate, really, or be willing to meditate and have an intention to help and assist. That is all why I always say to people, well, obviously I teach specific things about earth healing, but as long as you have that willingness. And I feel that, when you have that connection to nature, all the messages were to survive lockdown, to survive this virus attack, get out into the green, bring the greenery energy in, get out into your gardens, get out into nature, connect with Mother Earth. Why? Because she'll open your heart. What is this virus that's caused us all to be locked in? It attacks the heart center, it attacks the lungs. Who are the people that are dying? People with heart conditions. It is this chance for us to rebirth our hearts. And those who are willing to rebirth through the heart are the ones who are going to make the greatest strides in their life, in their spirituality, and in their opportunities, for achieving what their soul brought them to earth this life to fulfill.
Wow, that's perfect. That was actually how I was, like, you answered my question, being true psychic that you are. What was your final parting message for everyone? And that was it in a nutshell. So thank you for that, for everything. I can't wait to have our next chat. I believe we need to have many more of these. And the other thing, of course, before we kind of close today, is that we've got a combined beautiful ceremony coming up that feels like it's been like 10 years in the make.
I know.
Requested, or should we say, told to by Gaia herself, because obviously Alphedia gets these downloads, and when Gaia requests something, you can't say no, right?
I know. So of course we did our course. Kwali and I did a course in 2011, Crystal Skulls and the Serpents of Wisdom, and it was to help with the Earth's Kundalini moving to its new location in Peru. And Peru in the Chile, the high Andes. And we've talked for ages, haven't we, over the years? We have to, but of course we live quite far away. We have to get together, we have to do courses, blah, blah, blah. And various things, well, we both had babies, and then you had another baby, and,
and it's very hard for me to leave my house because of all my snakes. So to come to visit you in Scotland's tricky, because obviously I don't like leaving them.
Yeah. And so, but then I got the message that we were hoping to do a retreat, weren't we? So that people could physically handle the snakes, but that's not possible at the moment. So I know my big retreat in Glastonbury, which was my biggest retreat I was ever going to have done. I do retreats twice a year usually, has now had to be rescheduled. Even the October one, it's not going to happen because, well, people are just not going to be able to fly in from all over the world and share bedrooms with strangers and, stuff like that. So we're going for May next year. But so we're going to do this course, and it's going to be working again with the crystal skulls and the snake, your beautiful Kumara snake. But yes, the preparation work for everybody starting to reconnect the Earth's Kundalini, you know, really life force. A lot of folk will not have heard of this concept before. It's certainly not in your yogic teachings, is it?
No,
No.
no. No.
So
I'm sure we'll find the beautiful overlay, like there always is a wonderful weaving, isn't there?
oh yeah. So they probably knew about this life force. I mean, well, the Aborigines knew about the rainbow serpent, and so did the Mayan and the Central Americans. So you know, it's the same. It's really a lot of the same energy. But
I
it
mean,
is
the yogis knew about the main serpent, which is the Kundalini life force energy inside of each of ourselves.
self,
So, yeah,
exactly. So
it's
it's sort of the
broader than,
bridging of the two. It's to remind
yeah.
us, and I feel that a lot of people are, you know, require that at this time. And I think as well that the whole yoga world, I mean, I've not really been immersed in it, as you know. I've observed it because I've always been wanting to be part of it, but physically it's been difficult for me, because most people around here teach the hatha, or what's the other one that starts with an A and it's quite hardcore.
Ashtanga.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, and so but I always knew for me that it was the breath work is so important. So I went down the Tai Chi route, and I've done Tai Chi for years to give me that breath work side, because I know the breath work is so important. And so I feel for a lot of spiritual people that their concept of Kundalini yoga is maybe not how you would project Kundalini yoga to people, because a lot of people said, "Oh, Kundalini yoga, that's hardcore yoga. That's really hard yoga," and I'm like, so much easier than the stuff I've been trucking along to be trying to do. You know, but physically for me, coming from my physical position, but then again, I meditate for a living. I'm comfortable with meditation. I'm comfortable with mantra. I'm comfortable with all that side of things. So I'm now starting to wonder, have a lot of people been saying Kundalini is hard because it's actually making them connect with part of their self that they've not been comfortable with, the spiritual part of it? Whereas there is meditation in the other types of yoga, but nothing that is
as confrontational and poke and provoking as Kundalini. You hit the nail on the head there, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why it's really lovely that we can fuse our communities with this workshop, because I think hopefully your guys will be pleasantly surprised with how spiritual Kundalini can be, and I'm sure my students will be absolutely blown away with the other dimensions that you're going to bring to the spiritual practice, because you know the fact that we're actually working with real live snakes as well, they bring such a different energy, as the crystal skulls as well. You know, we're very blessed, you know, to be in this position working with such high vibrational masters in, you know, because I believe all the skulls to be masters, and the snakes are absolute masters. So you know, it's a real honor, and I feel like it's the flag post for something really special starting. Like this feels to me like the first of many.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Combining our energies together, because I think they're very complementary to each other, and it's sort of like the two dancing snakes that spiral around that central column, you know, that's like the two Ida and Pingala energies, like you and I. So I'm really looking forward to that process with you, and to share all this amazing, incredible wisdom with those that are going to join us for that special event, which is on the Syrian Galactic New Year's Day, which happened. We obviously planned it, but I didn't have that in my consciousness that was like that day. And it was obviously when we planned it, I was like, oh, that's magical. We're doing it on the most magical time of the year.
It'll be great. Well, great. We'll get that out, and yeah, and of course the joy of doing it all recorded is nobody ever misses out. So you can be listening to this video 3 years later, going, "Oh my goodness, I wanted to do that course," and it'll be there. You can have it, because that's what's so wonderful with you know, having everything recorded now. And people say to me, oh, it's not as powerful as in person. It can't be. And I was like, well, actually can, because I always create a portal. I call everybody's energies in, but I always call in the energies of those booking at a future date. And time is just an illusion. Linear time is an illusion. It is not really what time is. If you intend to be in an energy field at a particularly present moment, you can do that. You can be there, which is why I'm always teaching people, like, be careful what you watch on television, because, you know, if you're obsessed with, I don't know, some people love watching World War II videos and, you know, films and all that kind of stuff, you're going back to that place and all that energy and density. And yes, it can be for healing, but most people it's to feed their pain bodies or the memories from their last life when they maybe died in that war. And then, you know, it's like, you know, their guides are saying, look, you need to look at this, and they're just going, oh yeah, I love this, it gives me so much pain. And their guide's like, no, that's not why you're watching this. You're watching this because you have to heal this, you know. But we're so conditioned into, like me, past lives. I remember the first time that my neurophysiologist introduced that concept to me, I was like, oh, what's the point in, like, knowing about what you did in the past? What's the point in that? And now I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's so valuable to know what happened in the past, so you can heal it or you can gather the information from it. So
Wow, amazing. Always, every time we connect. I love it. So much fun. So they can connect with you, elementalbeings.co.uk, is that right?
yes, I also have the dragonwisdomschool.org if you're into dragons. I've got lots and lots of free information about dragons. That's definitely another workshop conversation. But yeah, elementalbeings.co.uk is my main site, but I also have dragonwisdomschool.org. That's solely just on the dragons, of course. And then I've got the Elemental Beings group on Facebook and Dragon Wisdom School group on Facebook. Alphedia Arara Kenchington is my profile on Facebook, and Alphedia Arara channel on Instagram. I do have Elemental Beings on Twitter, but I never use it, so there's not much point really connecting with me through there. And YouTube, again, Elemental Beings or Alphedia Arara is my YouTube channel.
And if people want to catch you, you do offer quite a lot of free transmissions on Facebook as well. So I highly recommend those.
I do about one a week for that, so definitely.
And of course, come to our workshop on the 20, on the 26th. Yeah, galactic.
July 2020, because you may be listening to this in 2022, but it was in 2020, but you'll be able to find it. I've got a back catalogue, and by this point Kwali will have as well on her elemental healing temple, so it'll be up there too, so you'll be able to find it on Kwali's site or through my site, and you can always download the course anytime your soul calls you to it.
Oh, thank you so much. The Queen of the Elementals herself. Like, you're literally one of the first people to be interviewed on the Elemental Healing Temple, which is like really, really important because you're such a key crystal cornerstone for the whole project, really. And I really hope we go on to do many more things together, and that you become like big part of the crystalline furniture of the Elemental Healing Temple.
Well, when all the crystals are sort of behind me there. I will have a better backdrop next time, but I'm sort of in my crystal room.
Well, you've got backdrop of crystals, basically. If anyone wants any crystals of really, really healthily sourced, beautiful, amazing crystal skulls, dragon skulls, and all types of other like crystalline entities, then please get in touch with Alphedia as well. I don't think they're on your website as much, are they?
No, I'm now putting them all up on the website. So we've sold out during lockdown, and I'm slowly getting it because my staff can't come in. So I'm slowly, but we are pretty well stocked at the moment. I'm pleased we've managed to get a lot more back on, but I still have 3-4 big boxes I'm sitting staring at there, which have been there for over a week, but hey.
What a lovely job to have to sort through all those gorgeous little entities. I bet they're all talking to you, aren't they, when you're picking them up? They're all whispering, hello, my name's this, my name's that.
You know, it's tiring. It's the most tiring part of my job is actually doing, I don't normally do it though, you see. Well, I do, I like connect with them all, but I normally have help. But yeah, that's been the tiringest part of the job in lockdown, has been, because they are, a lot of, it's just a crystal, but just like you get blasted from a download, you can get blasted from meeting so many new crystals, you know.
Absolutely. Wow. Oh, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. I've loved every second. I can't wait for the next installment. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And bless you all for sitting with us on that wonderful little ride of crystalline intelligence and amazing expanded information. Alphedia, you're incredible. And just keep doing what you're doing because we're absolutely so blessed to have you on this planet.
Oh, thank
And
you.
yeah, those of you that haven't yet experienced her, I can't recommend it enough. So hopefully you'll get some of my people coming and knocking on your beautiful crystal door. So have a wonderful evening, my sweet,
Yep.
and we will see you very very soon in cyberspace
Yeah.
for our beautiful ceremony on the 26th. God bless. Satnam, Waheguru, Aho, Namaste.